First this morning, there is confidence in the government that sometime in the next week, several coal-fired power stations which have been offline will be repaired and the power system will be sufficiently back that Australians on the East Coast and in southern Australia will not have to fear power outages. The government is increasingly but quietly optimistic. It is through the worst when it comes to power shortages. Despite the energy scare last week, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and his Energy Minister Chris Bowen have pushed ahead with their 43% greenhouse gas emissions reduction target, sending it to the UN and getting business leaders to sign up to it and announcing they will seek to legislate it. This is despite the fact that the Greens look like blocking that legislation together with the coalition in the Senate and that the government does not need to legislate the target. Late Friday night, the PM addressed a virtual economic, energy and climate summit put together by US President Joe Biden, where Mr Biden is said to have punched the air when the PM mentioned he was introducing the new target of a reduction of emissions by 43% by 2030. Anthony Albanese was asked to speak first of the visiting countries at this forum after Egypt, which is hosting the next COP meeting. This was a far cry from when Scott Morrison addressed a similar forum last April and was posted as 21st of the 27 speakers after he declined to upgrade Australia's emissions ambitions. At National Cabinet on Friday, the leaders, including New South Wales Liberal Premier Dominic Perrottet, also agreed to the federal government's climate change target. The communiqué read, "The National Cabinet affirmed a shared commitment to the Commonwealth's revised nationally determined contribution to a reduction in Australia's greenhouse gas emissions of 43% below 2005 levels by 2030, which has been submitted to the United Nations." There were some complaints over the weekend from the power companies after Prime Minister Anthony Albanese claimed the companies were gaming the system, not providing power when they should be after the Australian energy market operator capped the power price. That scenario, of course, led to the AEMO suspending the market last Wednesday. My colleague Peter Stefanovic asked the PM during an interview on Friday morning whether it was a mistake to have privatised electricity generation.
Oh, look, that's done. And I think what people are interested in is not so much an analysis of what happened all those years ago. What has been a mistake has been a failure to make sure that the new investment that was required occurred. And that hasn't occurred because you've had 22 different energy plans under the former government and none of them landed.
I can reveal that the PM was among the delegates who voted against the privatisation of the generators at the infamous New South Wales Labor Conference of 2008, when then Premier Maurice Yemmer and his Treasurer Michael Costa sought to sell off the generators and were resoundingly voted down at the conference. Eventually, Yemmer's successor Nathan Rees sold off generation trading rights, and his successors, Barry O'Farrell and Mike Baird, sold off the physical generators. At the time, Maurice Yemmer ironically said privatising generation was necessary to keep the lights on. At National Cabinet on Friday, we also saw the Commonwealth stump up another $750 million for state governments over the next 3 months to help hospitals make it through the COVID and flu season. There is a belief in the federal government that more can be done to ease pressure on the system as well by having people treated in other settings to emergency departments. It did make a GP super clinics promise during the campaign. I've mentioned how the National Cabinet signed off on the federal government's increased climate change target on Friday. They also expressed their support for the Commonwealth's commitment to progress a referendum to constitutionally enshrine a voice to Parliament in the Constitution as a matter of priority. The Albanese government's start to office then has been dominated a bit, I guess, by causes that would be welcomed by the left of politics, or certainly those that would be welcomed by so-called teal independents and their supporters in wealthier parts of Australia. More economically rational decisions are going to be required in the October budget, with Treasurer Jim Chalmers indicating on the weekend he is prepared to make budget cuts. Fair enough too with inflation out of control, and the Reserve Bank is likely to raise interest rates by another 2% during the rest of the year.